Just connecting. All right, welcome everyone to the 8th session of our first Do No Harm Summit. It has been an absolute blast hosting you this weekend. So far, we have heard a lot of different topics, including business management, bonding with your horse, boundaries, hoof care, aromatherapy, bit fitting, and today we're actually going to be talking with ELISE from Stokers Ridge Ranch about the importance of halter training. Before I go in and hand over the reins, what I just wanted to do was give you a couple of quick tips. So if you have any questions throughout the session, please do pop them into the Facebook comments or into the group chat in the webinar. We will endeavour to answer them as we're going through. Of course, if we have moved on, we will come back at the end and answer your questions. So don't feel like you will miss out just because your questions get answered immediately. But definitely feel free to jump in, take advantage of ELISE's training, and go over her ponies because she is sharing them live with us as well. There's a little bit of information as well. It is apparently a bit windy over at Stokers Ridge Ranch today. So if it does cut a little bit out, it's probably just wind interference. We'll try to work around that as much as possible. But it seems to have, cross fingers, settled down for now. So hopefully we won't have any dramas. So without further ado, I'm actually going to introduce you guys to ELISE from Stokers Ridge Ranch. Hi, ELISE.
Hey. How you going, Sarah?
I'm good. Would you like to tell us a little bit about the importance of halter training?
Yeah, halter training is super important, and I wanted to unpack with you guys today how we may not realize what we are imprinting onto our horses for a lifetime, and how this can set them up to thrive or to lay down seeds of race, panic, and ultimately mistrust. So what is halter training, right? It seems really self-explanatory. We want a horse that is trained in halter. For me though, I see things a little bit differently. From my perspective, I believe that when we fixate on a task, when we're working with our horses, we rarely reap a reward because we forget to reward the try that our horse gives us. And this make mentality can set us up to use more force or pressure than is necessary. Halter training is a young horse's first formal education, and to me, a really critical opportunity to set up the default mindset that I want in my horse. Over all my years of learning, I realized that many behavioral issues are simply being masked by, or simply masking, deeper foundational issues. And if we change our perspective from one that is linear and task focused, and we endeavor to look for and understand the feedback that our horse is giving us, then that's when we can really unlock the potential in our horse. So today we're going to have a look at Pepsi and Whisky. Pepsi is a 17-month-old filly, quarter horse filly, and we've had Pepsi for since the end of October. Pep was advertised as pretty much unhandled. She could be patted and rubbed all over, and she really loved humans, and she'd had a lot of contact with her lovely owner, but she hadn't had any real kind of halter training. There'd been nothing really happening there, and that's exactly what we wanted. We really wanted to find a horse that we could put our method and our philosophies into straight away. And so we went down to Melbourne to have a look at Pep, and I did a little bit of halter work with her there in our short visit because I wanted to prepare her for her truck ride home. Unfortunately, Pep had a bit of a tough time with her connecting trucking company when they picked her up. They picked her up, and they kind of just approached her with the mindset of being a foal, and that it had not much handling, that she would be extremely difficult to handle, and they went straight into bum ropes behind her bum, pulling on a lead rope, whacking her on the bum, all sorts of things that I don't like putting into young horses. And so this kind of set Pepsi up with a bit of a default. And I wanted to explain what defaults are. And so what that means for Pepsi now is that she has this trigger that when she feels that same stress level and that instinct that she has when she feels a lot of pressure, or if someone picks up the lead rope and kind of pulls on her, she instantly triggers and then defaults into pulling back. She really locks up through her shoulders, she braces all through her back, and she kind of panics a bit at first, and you can work her through it. And we've been working with her a lot to help her think through that situation. And what that means we need to do is just create more positive neural pathways than negative ones, so that when she has those moments, it's like flexing a muscle. The more we work that muscle, that positive pathway, the stronger it's going to become. So as she gets older, so say like when she's 3, it's really not going to be an issue. It will still always be there, just minusculely, but it will take a larger stress event to bring it out. And probably for Pepsi, that will never happen, because she is going to stay with us for life. But sometimes you can't count, you just don't know. Sometimes things can happen. So the goal is to help Pepsi be able to work through that emotionally and think her way through that. So I first want to talk to you guys about approaching, because when you approach a horse, and I just feel like this is something that's really nice that we can do with all our horses, young, old, educated or uneducated, and it's a really nice way to connect with them before we ask something of them. So we've got Pepsi here already, because we just wanted to make it nice and quick for our presentation. But I'm just going to come up to Pepsi now, and I'm going to come in towards the shoulder, and I'm going to offer my hand, and see how she brought her nose towards me and made that connection. And again, and it just means that I'm able, she sort of is giving me permission nearly in a way to approach her. So here she is. So you may see that I'm using a string on Pepsi. It's quite open. There's nothing tied with her. And this is how I start all my young horses. And this is how I even work with horses that need pre-halter education. And I start with the open rope, because what it does is it eliminates any potential for leverage to be used. So because I can't pull Pepsi around, with the halter, it provides an opportunity for her to give feedback on how she actually feels about what I'm asking. And it also allows me to find the softest moment and build on that, rather than having to take all that brace and that tension back out again. So when we're working with an open rope, I like to consider right from the very first moment weight distribution, and I want to and put pause, because I want to set the horse up for movements that they might do as they move into their performance career. So things like turnarounds, spins, rollbacks, all that sort of thing. So when I'm asking her with this rope, I want her brain to be connecting with her feet. So I want her to start engaging her mind with what I'm asking. So I'm going to open the rope up here and ask her to step across. And sometimes you need to use your body to help guide them when they're young ones. And I'm going to be careful of the weight here, because I want her to sit back on her hind. And sometimes you can even set them up to help them out a little bit more. So I want to set her weight up on her hind. There we go. And all I'm looking for is for that nose to turn and this shoulder here to step out. So this inside foot to step out. Her weight sitting on her hind. Now I'm going to go with her again. Again, I'm looking for this outside shoulder to come step underneath, like that, and then that foot to step over. Good girl, Ellen. And all her weight still on that hind leg. I might just move her forward a little bit so we're back in the sun.
You look all right.
Is that better?
Yeah,
okay,
that's fine.
And we're going to ask her to go the opposite way. So I don't know if you guys will see Pep Trigger it's against really my principles to make it stressful for her so that we can then work through that default. But if it happens, I'll be able to show you how you can also help out a young horse with that if they get a bit stuck in the shoulder. So I'm going to ask for this opposite direction. So here I'm offering, and just kind of a bit distracted over there, but I'm just going to wait. Here she's coming. There's the nose. I'm going to use my body here a little bit because this leg, yeah, there. See, that needs to come back. Good girl. And that one, the left, what's that? The right front foot needed to step across. So you might have noticed she had her weight at the start of that with this foot forward, a bit like that. And if I had just picked up the rope and brought it across, she may have not sat back on that hind over there, and therefore the way she was carrying her weight would not be correct. And we wanted to set up muscle memory. So we want now Pepsi, as she's growing, to have this memory of how she's moving so that she's carrying herself correctly right through from now to when she grazes in the paddock to then when she's under saddle. I'm going to ask her again. There's the feel. There's the go. Good girl. And it's really not much that we're doing because she is only 17 months and our plan with Pepsi is not to start her until she's a little bit later. So really we just want to keep it short and sweet, about 15 minutes of work. So make it quality, not quantity. And then she can just go back out to the paddock and be a horse and grow. And as she's growing over the months, we'll just pull her in for her trims, her feet, worming feet, that sort of thing. And every moment that I have with her or any of our young horses, we are having conscious interactions. So when I'm leading her, I'm asking her to step correctly like this. And we can do the same thing with the hind quarter. So I'm going to ask her hind to move. She's anticipating, so I'm just going to go with her and rub. So you can see I haven't got any pull on that rope. I can't use leverage to pull her head around. I have to rely on how I'm asking with my hand. So I'm going to rub her. Okay, now I'm going to ask. Good girl. Girl. So just take it nice and slow. You're just looking for that weight shift or that step, and then you want to give her a rub and reward that. Start off with little things and build on those little tries. Check out that other side, Cap. Here's my ask. Good girl. I'm going to try some forwards. Some forwards. And I'll show you back up on this side. So I'm just asking her here at her neck. Girl. Girl. And then once all the young ones can do that, just those few little steps, I go to the neck rope. This is just a 22-foot rope with the ring, and I've just slid the rope through the ring. So we want to make sure that when we're using a neck rope, that we've really established all the other foundations that we need so that we don't end up having the rope tighten and our horse run off, and it can actually, like, it can tighten on their neck too much and can cut off some of that.
ELISE,
Yeah.
what's the main difference between the neck rope and the, I guess, the string?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So really the string is just offering the opportunity to have less sort of, I'm trying to think of the right word. Well, it provides less pressure really, because the neck rope, it can tighten, and then this becomes quite tight in your step across. So if you're not careful, you can be using a neck rope and it can be tightening, and then it's that pressure around the horse's neck that's making them move across. Rather, when you use an open rope, you're just making that offer and the horse is taking you up on that. So I always like to start like that so I can see where the horse is at, and then I move to the neck rope, so that I'm asking with less guiding of my body as well. I'm asking her to move out and around me from staying here. There's that forward foot. So I'm just going to say, need to move back. There. So I'm just asking for her to be understanding the feel and the direction on the rope without me having to also guide her with my body. So it's just kind of like that next layer of learning about feel and direction using a rope. Does that help your question, Sarah?
That's great. Thanks, Elise.
That's okay. So it's the same thing here. We just want to check out exactly the same thing. So I'm just going to offer out to there. Yeah. And then in our backup, it's a little bit different. So the horse is now starting to learn to follow feel from the side, and I'll show that. So before, when we were using the neck string, it was coming from her chest here. The feel was coming from the chest, but now it's coming from the side, and I need her to be listening to this feel. So she's going to swing her hind a little bit. She's still trying to understand what it means when it comes from the side. There's okay. She had a couple of really nice steps that were a bit straighter. So if they swing their hind, if they don't quite get what you're asking for at first, don't worry about any of those misunderstandings. Really focus on what it is that we are asking our horse, and really release on those little moments. So even a try could be a whisker, it could be a weight shift, it could be like even their thought. When you start to think about engaging a horse's mind, you can see their thoughts starting to revolve around what you're asking, and they become really connected with you. So we go, after checking all that out, that's when we can do some circle work. And I don't like to do lots of circles with young horses, mostly because they're not ready to be going in a smaller circle. They're not ready to be moving around and it impacts their joints, especially at this age. But I do want Pep to understand how to move around me in a circle really nice and softly without pulling on the rope at all. So I'm going to ask her to lift her head up. She likes the green grass. Okay. I'm going to ask her to step out and around me. And I want to have an open hand. Up here. Oh no, she thought about it then, so she followed that feel really nicely. The reason I like to have an open hand is because I like to give my horses the opportunity to be able to feel that there's nothing there that's holding them. So they've learned to put themselves in that position. And what you found when Pepsi got a little bit stuck there, she sort of lost her forward movement a little bit, is that I didn't even have to pull on her or, you know, wave a rope at her. But as soon as she felt that feel on the rope move, she came off it straight away. And that's what we're really looking for in our young horses when they're moving around. And that's really all I do with her when I bring her out, is just check out all this sort of stuff and make sure that she's understanding feel and direction, because when she grows up and she does more groundwork and she becomes a ridden horse, this is going to be key to her development. And then once they've worked through this really nicely, you can move them into the halter. And I don't think you guys really need to see me put Pep in the halter. Well, I can, I guess. But she moves around beautifully. Maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll demonstrate that.
Yep.
So Pepsi's graduated to the halter now. So I use a halter on her all the time. But I do go back to my neck rope to sort of check things out. Yeah.
And Elise, how come you ask her kind of to put her head in rather than just come on and put it on her?
Well, it becomes a bit of a muscle memory sort of thing. So if I come up to Pepsi and I flip it on her nose, and then I have to kind of like flip this other long piece up over a pole, what it can do to some horses, it can make them pick their head up like this, and it will break all the muscles through her neck, or brace the muscles through her back, and it just sort of doesn't set the horse up for a really a nice kind of pattern when they become to be haltered. So a lot of the time I get horses come and you go to put the halter on even like that and they still throw their head up. Sometimes when horses are bridled, they'll do that as well. So that's why I like to ask her to put her head. Well, I don't even really ask her. It's more I come over and I just kind of like offer it to her and she wants to make that connection with me. So here you'll see the same thing. So you can see as soon as I offer that feel, the nose is following first. She's not pushing against it. She's looking for where I'm asking her to go. And that's how we like to train all our young horses here at Stokers Ridge. So I've also got Whisky. I'm going to get Whisky in a minute, but just a little bit of his backstory. He came to us in February this year. He actually came to me for some training and his previous owner had quite a few really valid grievances with him. Being that he liked to buck in his trot to canter transition on the ground and under saddle, and he also ran over her personal space. He would pull on the halter. He just was kind of quite pushy and bossy and didn't really listen. He also had a really bad emotional anxiety issue, which stemmed from a lot of foundational issues with him. And some horses get anxiety like that really easily, and so we need to be able to help them through that. So I want to take you guys through what I did with Whisky to be able to help him out. I'm just going to move Pep over here. Oh yeah, do you guys have any questions about Pepsi and the halter work?
No questions that have come through, but comments about how sweet she is and how much we wish we had that green grass.
Yeah, it's pretty nice and green. The horses love it too. All right, we might wait a minute, do you think, Sarah? See if anyone pops a question in, and then we'll move on to Whisky. I'll fix my rope while I'm waiting.
So no questions at this stage, just lots of comments about loved it and the rest.
Okay, cool, awesome.
So people are enjoying.
If anyone does think of a question after we've finished our presentation, then you can send a private message to our Facebook page, or you can pop a question into the comment section on this post for the live, and we'll try and get back to you as soon as we can with that. All right, let's swap over. Sorry. Come on, mister. You might come on over here. So you can see already, Whisky doesn't follow feel as nicely. He started to come off it then, his weight started to shift, but pushy. This is good compared to how he was. But he's a really, really, really sweet guy. And now that we've been able to work through a lot of these issues with him, he doesn't buck anymore in his transitions. He doesn't have any of his anxiety that he used to have. And he's starting to really understand feel on the rope. So for Whisky, his default when you picked up the rope was to actually look in the opposite direction. He was very much in opposition of what you were asking. His mind was not with us at all, and he wasn't waiting for us to ask him to do something. He just kind of was off in his own little world. So I just want to see if, same thing again, I don't want to make him do it incorrectly. That sort of goes against what I believe, but we'll just see if today he's having a bit of an off day. So I'm offering it and his nose just tips like that. And so that's what I'm looking for with him. But when he came, I would offer it and he would actually push his head in the opposite direction. So to help him out with that, I went back to here I did the open rope. I did the open rope with him, and then I went to my 22. The other horses are coming in. And the grass is delicious. So here you can see I haven't got leverage like what I had with the halter. And so even though I wasn't pulling him with the halter, it made a difference. So you might see some of Whisky's little defaults come out here. Let me just see if I can get his attention back on me and stop thinking about the grass. You can see how easy it is for that rope to tighten. So I just want to be able to offer it to him, and I'm just looking for his brain to connect and for him to think about heading in the direction that I want. And for him at the start, it was literally, I just wanted him to think that way. He didn't have to even move his feet. I wasn't really too worried about weight distribution or footfalls or anything like that. I just wanted his mind thinking about what I was asking, and I wanted his mind to start connecting with his feet, so that it would help his body flow a lot better, so that bends in his body.
So I just noticed, Lise, that you're not criticizing him for eating or, you know, any of his distractedness. How are you going to get him to where Pep is now?
Well, it will take him a little bit longer to get to where Pep is, because Pep, even though she had that little moment in her, she did have, she's had more positive experiences, more positive neural pathways than what she's had of negative ones, whereas he's had more negative. So even though, and this is where it can get really confusing, because he halters fine. You can catch him, you can put the halter on. You saw me move him around with the halter. He wasn't really too oppositional, but when you go to the rope around his neck, you're able to get the true thoughts on what he's actually thinking. He actually he really doesn't care too much about what I'm asking. So for him, what we need to do is we need to check this out really often. And I probably haven't done this with him for a while. So this is telling me that I need to jump in and check in with him a lot more frequently than what I had done. So it's awesome that we've been able to help him through his anxiety, and we've been able to help the bucking. That doesn't happen anymore.
And the biting, the self-mutilating.
So his anxiety was showing up in self-mutilating. He would come, bring his head around to his leg and bite his leg so bad he was pulling hair out. So it was pretty severe. So that doesn't happen anymore. And the bucking online, you just offer your feel up and he does follow it up, but he does have the halter on. So we need to really start working with the neck rope a little bit more, even on the circles, but he's not ready to be doing anything faster than a walk on the circle, because he still at times defaults back to his oppositional triggers back to his default, which is opposition, and pulls away from the feel. And if you've got a 22 around a big horse's neck and they pull away and they're not able to connect back with you and listen, that we don't have strength. We can't win a strength war with them. He's a big, huge animal, and he will just take off. And then that's when it becomes dangerous and a bit risky to do. So that's why it's always best to make sure you've got all your foundations layered down properly first and build up. And when you hit a spot like we have now with Whisky, we go back to where we knew that it was really nice and rebuild back up again. And that's how you have to layer with training horses. So that's what we'll be doing with Whisky now, is just going back and making sure that his circle work with the neck rope on the 22 is starting to get really nice and he's responding to that feel. So this is something, get your head up, mate. You've been eating in the round yard all morning. I'm pretty sure you cannot eat. This is something that you can do with all your horses, even your educated horses, young, old horses. You can check them out. Put the halter or use an open rope. Use an open rope around their neck and offer them the feel like I was doing with Pepsi. Offer for them to go this way. and you're looking for the nose to turn, the mind to be engaged, him to move his nose and step his foot across. So I'm going to use my body a bit here to guide him. I'm kind of not thinking. I'm going to shorten up that feel. See how it's tightened up? But I'm going to release it. And now he's moving off it really nicely with that release. So there's no pulling happening there. And that's what we want to look for. So if it does get a bit tight, use your body to guide. Don't worry about footfalls right now. You can see he's a bit stuck there. That's what I'm looking for. So I'm just looking for his mind to connect with what it is that I'm asking and for it to be nice and soft. Have you guys got any questions about Whisky?
I've actually got one as well. Would you say that some of these horses where their halter training hasn't been correctly applied at the beginning, they more react in a submissive role rather than a connected role?
100%. Yeah, we had a really interesting discussion about this yesterday, actually, because a lot of the time that can come from the overuse of pressure and using like discomfort to achieve a result or a movement. And so when you see a horse, or when you feel a horse like that, like you said, Sarah, where they're not as connected with you, sometimes they can actually be shut down. So they can often be doing things and be quite tolerant of what we're asking, and they seem quite compliant, and they're very happy to do everything. When we put the 22 around their neck and actually check out how they're feeling about it, that's when we really get to see what they're thinking. And that's where we need to build connection. You know, we don't want connection to come from them having to run away from something or being evasive of something. We want them to be thinking about what we're asking and thinking about following that feel. Does that help?
That was great. Thank you.
All right. I'll just bring Whisky back.
I have a question.
Yeah.
With how Whisky is right now, he's quite distracted, and he is young. He's only
he's
5.
Only 5. Yeah.
But
he's only 5.
I was wondering as well, do you, even though he is 5, are you still going to approach him how you're going to approach Pepsi, with you're just going to do short little quality sessions, or is it different with how you approach a 5-year-old than a little foal?
I think it really depends on the horse, and I think it really depends on the horse's maturity and how they cope with things. But a horse like Whisky, who does get distracted really easily, and when they get distracted, they almost actually just switch off to the person that's working with them. Not so much in a shutdown way, but it becomes more of just a, because he doesn't have that connection, because that connection isn't there yet. He hasn't, he listens to me, but he's not connected properly yet to what the rope's asking him to do. So
it's almost like he's waiting for you to get bigger with him, because that's his.
He's waiting for me to get really big with him, and then he'll do what I'm asking. And I'm not going to do that, because that's not going to really solve any problems. So for Whisky, it's short, like especially neck rope sessions. It's the same sort of thing, 15 or 20 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
One of the audience has asked why you call the rope a 22.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Well, it is 22 foot in length. So I use this when I'm working my horses on the lunge, and this part of the rope comes out of the ring, and I use a D-clip on here to attach it to the halter for those who are in a halter and doing halter work, like my more educated horses. So when the rope's out at its full length, it's 22 feet, and I like to work with that length rope so that, especially with training horses, because usually what you find is the further out in length that they go, the more emotional that they become. So you need to be able to shorten and lengthen your circle work as you need to be able to help your horse out.
That's an excellent reason for adjusting it, or having that extra length, but still being mindful to adjust it and
Yeah.
bring them in when they need to reconnect with you again.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, sometimes the horse takes off too. Like sometimes they have this burst and you need to be able to let the rope run through your hand a bit and then pick up the feel and then bring them back in. If we have a short rope, it doesn't allow us to move as much with the horse. So I don't tend to stay in the one spot. When I'm working, I sort of, especially younger horses that are needing education, I sort of go with them and float with them and then help them to come back to me. And we always end up back in our starting spot. But if I was to stay in the one spot and they move, they end up hitting this full-on pressure, and then you often, you know, they get yanked, people yank back in to come back onto the circle, but it just sets up like patterns of, you know, the horse's head flicking, and sometimes, you know, they end up then just going around the circle with their head bent to the side. And so it's really important to go with your horse, and then to also be able to lengthen and shorten your rope up.
Yeah. There was just another question. I think it's just about a terminology that you use. You say getting big with you. Do you mean dominant or?
I say I get big. Sorry,
like
I don't understand.
Getting when you get big, like with a phase.
Oh, no, I don't mean dominant. So that's a really good question, because I think I work a lot with energy. So energy is kind of like the first offer that I put out with horses, and that's just my body energy. And then sometimes I might need to back up my body energy by increasing the energy that's coming out of my body. And then in that case, I might kind of like twirl my rope a little bit. But it's really important when you're using pressure in that sense, because it is pressure. Like energy is pressure. Pressure can be the most minute thing, and it's not so much that pressure is bad, but how we're using pressure, and are we putting that offer into our horse first? And so here we go. We might say, so here he's really pulling on my rope. So I'm just going to ask him to come off that field, and now he's going to put his bum into me. So there was the energy at his bum. Come up here.
Personal space
Personal
issues.
space issues. So sometimes you didn't quite get to see it then. I thought it might have been a good opportunity, but that's probably key in talking about when I mean get big. So there I thought I was going to have to be like, hey, you need to get out of, you've got your bum coming on top of me, get your bum out. But he responded to just the energy that was coming to my body. So I didn't follow through, even though in my mind I was like, oh, I might need to here. So it's really important that when we're working with energy and with pressure and increasing our energy and heightening it, that we don't do it if we don't need to. Because if we're doing it and there's no reason, that's when the horse becomes panicky and they don't understand and they start running away from it. They become evasive. So big, the word big for me is probably just increasing, like an increasing of energy.
And I remember you said, because I had a similar question when I started with you learning on Nero, you said it's not an emotional big. You know, it's not, it's there's no emotion in it.
Yeah.
It's just, I'm protecting my bubble and you can have your emotional response. And I'm not, there's no judgment, but there's certain parameters, like you coming on top of me or,
definitely. And definitely when we use pressure, the horse will respond. They understand our intent. So, you know, there's a really big difference, I guess, in me swinging my rope like this and just sort of like increasing the energy that I'm putting out there to walking up to him and giving him a whack like that. And that kind of intent that you might be delivering in the way you're using your ropes or the way that you're using like that increase of energy, that's what the horse picks up on and reads. So that's when I say big, it's not an emotional response. It's not like, oh, I'm going to get huge with you and dominate you and I'm the alpha. It's not that at all. It's just about increasing that bit of energy so that they're understanding what your energy is saying. And usually once you've done it a couple of times, like once they start to understand what your energy is, especially if it's a horse that hasn't really had anyone work with them with energy, they then pick up on it so quickly because that's how they communicate. It's already so natural to them. They just need to learn that we're speaking their language.
Beautiful. I love it. And Nancy loved your explanation. So, oh, sorry, Alison. Nancy's her horse's name.
That's good, Alison. I hope if it was your question, I hope it answered your question well.
Yeah, no, it was. I know that you obviously do a lot of training in your location in Stokers Ridge, which is in New South Wales. Is that correct?
Yeah, in Stokers Siding in New South Wales.
Excellent. And I believe that you've got a couple of offers to give to the audience if they want to work with you in a different way.
Yeah, I do. So we would really love to offer the audience 4 weeks of horse training for $9.90, and that includes hay here. And because I'm a big believer in equine nutrition and gut health, but that's a total another topic. So we'd like to include hay with all our training. And so that's a saving of $2.90 for 4 weeks of horse training, and that can be halter starting, re-education starting, if you just want your educated horse to have a tune-up, whatever you feel it might be. And then the second offer that we have for international students or students who might not be able to travel to us, or because of the COVID situation at the moment, you might want to be doing your lessons from home, is that we're going to offer online coaching, online video coaching, and that's 10% off that intensive coaching package, which I think is like 2 lessons a week for 3 weeks, I think it was. I've just had a memory blank. You'll have to, so I think that's on the website, isn't it, Sarah? So
that is, yes. And they just need to message you through Stokers Ridge Ranch Facebook page, is that correct? To take you up on that offer?
Yes, that would be great. Yeah, just message us through that page and or DM on Instagram or something, and yeah, we can be in touch with you with that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for bringing the horses in. It was lovely to see both Pepsi and Whisky working with you, and Whisky somewhat not to give you a little bit of demonstration.
That's okay. Like, you know, it would have been probably nice if I could have demonstrated really well where he's at, but you know, like, you work with the horse that you have on the day. Today he's not really that with me. Today he wants to be with the other horses and he wants to eat the nice green grass, and what that has provided is an opportunity for you guys to see how to work through something that's not really going as planned, and if they do get a bit stuck, what you can do with that. So I think it's probably been good.
And not to sweat the small stuff.
And don't sweat the small stuff, you know, like yeah, just work with the horse that you have on the day, and tomorrow it might be a different story.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. As mentioned, if you guys had to drop in or only caught part of the session, you'll be able to catch the replays in the Facebook group, and the video will be sent through, the video link will be sent through shortly as well if you're on the email list. If you need to, if you want to take up ELISE's offer or want to talk to her a little bit more about that, I'll also pop the link in the Facebook group for her Facebook group, so you can contact her directly, and the link will be on the website with the recording as well. So thank you so much, ELISE. Really appreciated you taking the time out and showing us some of your ponies and the work that you do.
That's okay. Thank you so much for having me on this summit, guys, and I hope everyone really enjoyed what we had to chat about today.
Beautiful. Thank you. Now, just a quick reminder, we'll have a couple of hours break, and our next session is going to be kicking off at 3 p.m. And we've actually got Zane coming in, who is a physiotherapist, to talk about rider posture and fitness. And then at 5 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, we will have Christine coming in to talk about strengthening and suppling your horse. And then later this evening, I'll be online talking about all the fun things about horse swimming.
Sounds great.
So we'll see you guys then. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.